and we are here for another donor update. I'm Marissa Streit, CEO of PragerU. It is my pleasure to bring to you the most important things, the inside and outs of what we're working on at PragerU. I usually have a guest with me on these episodes, but today it's just going to be me because it's going to be a very short little segment. The reason it's a short little segment is because I want to use your time to hear back from you about the things that you think are most important that we focus on. You see, we're now in the fall semester of PragerU, and we're starting to make plans for next year. New shows, new content, new priorities, and what a better way than to hear from you, our supporters, what you think we should focus on. So down below, there's a little questionnaire for you to click on. Please take a few minutes of your time to respond to what are your favorite content that we produced this year and what you're hoping to see next year. Want to also show you a comparison that we've built for you. You see, left-wing sites are claiming that our videos are hate speech. YouTube is claiming that the reason our videos are being censored is simply because they have all kinds of words in there that are part of their algorithms and therefore they're censoring our content. However, there are so many videos out there with the same exact content on the left that is not being censored by YouTube. So what we decided to do is to put together a simple comparison for you. Watch our videos on the same theme that other videos on YouTube are not censored and see in your own eyes whether or not there's ideological censorship.
Let's talk about one of the most emotionally charged subjects there is, abortion, but in an unemotional way.
Pro-life lawmakers are like Confederate Civil War reenactors, a group of angry old white men who get together and try and relive the glory days, no matter how unrealistic.
Intersectionality is a form of identity politics in which the value of your opinion depends on how many victim groups you belong to.
Black women endure both gender discrimination and racial discrimination. Over the last 30 years, scholars, educators, and activists have expanded the use of the word intersectionality to talk about identities beyond race and gender.
If we do in fact support political, social, and religious freedom, then we cannot in good conscience give Islam a free pass on the grounds of multicultural sensitivity. We need to say to Muslims living in the West, if you want to live in our societies, to share in the material benefits, then you need to accept that our freedoms are not optional.
Hijab in Arabic means to cover. It normally refers to
a piece of fabric that some women use to cover their hair.
Hijab is a concept.
It's meant to kind of promote modesty.
For me, putting on a headscarf was emancipation, because that was the moment that I reclaimed my identity.
They say, hey peeps, I'm a Muslim, what's up?
When I was the Prime Minister of Canada, I was often asked this question: why do you support Israel? My response, in effect, was always the same. Why wouldn't I support Israel? Why wouldn't I support a fellow democratic nation where open elections, free speech, and religious tolerance are the everyday norm?
When Trump says that Israel is one of the great democracies in the world, I would say that's the biggest bullshit I've ever had.
When I hear that Christians in the West are helping Israel, thinking that they are helping Christians in Palestine, I think they're mistaken. Israel is who to blame. They took everything, man. They took all your life since you were a child.
America is now the least racist white majority society in the world, has a better record of legal protections of minorities than any other society, white or black, offers more opportunities to a greater number of black persons than any other society, including all of those of Africa.
You look at Black Lives Matter, and they're standing in that tradition. They're trying to finish the unfinished business of the fact that we have mass incarceration of African Americans, that you have police officers who murder black people on the streets of the United States in 2016.
If you're still a fan of Marxism after all the death, suffering, and destruction it's caused, that's your right. But own up to it. Don't hide behind the "it's never really been tried" line. It has.
What exactly is socialism? Well, in its most simple form, socialism is when a population collectively owns and controls the means of production and distributes the end result proportionally. Socialist democracies are the happiest countries in the world.
And now, lastly, a few weeks ago, we had a fascinating event in California in Orange County. We brought together, of course, Dennis Prager, interviewed Eric Cochran from Project Veritas. He's a whistleblower that used to work for Pinterest. Once he saw that there was a blacklist of institutions, organizations, people, and terms that are being censored by big tech companies simply because big tech companies did not agree with or like that content, he couldn't take it anymore, and he essentially blew the whistle and lost his career. He was hired by Project Veritas to now be a whistleblower advocate. He came to our event and spoke all about it. A fascinating, fascinating interview with Eric Cochran.
I actually worked at Pinterest. I went to Pinterest because it wasn't Google and because it wasn't Facebook and because it wasn't Twitter. I was like, okay, Pinterest is a smaller company. We're not going to end up getting all political and everything like that. And then 2 years down the road working at Pinterest, I was hearing more and more about our misinformation efforts and our hate speech rules, and we'd have these meetings and large teams dedicated to this stuff. And it would always be under the guise of trying to help people. It would be about anti-vax things or fringe things and like legitimate conspiracy theories. And and of course everybody agrees that we should help people understand truths about those fringe topics. But then under the surface, when I actually got curious, I started looking into what was called our sensitive terms list, our list that would derank terms. And there I saw terms like Christian Easter, Bible verses, Ben Shapiro. Mainstream conservative ideas were on these lists, and this would prevent content from showing up in your search results. And it actually got worse from there. Then I started, as I was completely looking for what we might also be shadow banning and such, I looked onto our pornography block list. And this was a list of just awful, awful websites that, of course, nobody would want to show up on Pinterest. And I was like, there's not going to be anything here. And I happened to see a coworker say, hey, I think we should put the Live Action, this pro-life site, on this list. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound right. And I looked into this list then, and I was shocked to find Zero Hedge, PJ Media, Gateway Pundit, among a lot of other conservative websites on this pornography block list. But then I took this Project Veritas. I said, this is the smoking gun. This is not just about Pinterest, but this is the way that all of these big tech companies think. And that's why I'm so happy that like Project Veritas and PragerU are working together, because PragerU has all this infrastructure, and you have the audience and the media, the social media presence to be able to push forward these whistleblowers and bring out more whistleblowers. So I am very optimistic, and I think the public is again gaining more consciousness about the conservative movement because of PragerU.
Also at this event, we had Dr. Robert Epstein, who spoke about his vast research on Google and search manipulation. Just a fascinating segment. So take a look at this interview. We're sorry if we missed you at the event, but we don't want you to miss the content.
I love democracy. I love our country more than I love any particular party or candidate. That's what I said. Now, to me, that's not courage, that's common sense. It should be for everyone. So then I told Congress that the big tech companies in 2020, if there's no monitoring system in place to stop them, they can shift 15 million votes to one presidential candidate with no one knowing that they've done so and without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace. And I said, I know this for two reasons. One is I've done almost 7 years of meticulous controlled randomized studies, now involving tens of thousands of people in 5 national elections in 4 countries, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, replicated. I've done a tremendous amount of research showing the power that companies like Google have to shift opinions and votes without anyone knowing they have been influenced. I've shown, for example, that if search results favor one candidate over another, that can easily shift 20% or more of the votes of undecided voters, up to 80% in some demographic groups. The most vulnerable demographic group I've ever found, moderate Republicans. They're very heavily influenced by this type of computer output. They trust it tremendously. I've shown in experiments that when you start to type a search term into Google's search box, I've shown that I can take a 50-50 split among undecided voters, and just by manipulating those suggestions that Google flashes at you as you're typing, I can turn a 50-50 split into a 90-10 split with no one having the slightest idea that they've been manipulated. And that's just the beginning. I've at this point have discovered over the years about a dozen new forms of manipulation that the internet has made possible and that are entirely in the hands of Google and to a lesser extent Facebook and to a lesser extent Twitter and then a couple of more companies that are much smaller. But we're talking about an ability to manipulate that has never existed before in human history.
And again, please remember to fill in the survey. We want to hear your thoughts, and have a wonderful month. We will see you next time.